Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City, where we want to help you build a Lego city regardless of the space you have. Today we'll be talking about storytelling in Lego, and I'll be using this MOC as an example. Anytime I create a MOC, I think of it as a vehicle to tell a story. I don't think of it as a collection of bricks or just a building. I know there are a lot of people who build MOCs and they really focus on the architectural elements of the building itself. And if they do a video and they showcase the MOC, they often showcase the structure, the different levels, and the different build techniques used to achieve certain design elements. However, I think that's just half of the MOC. That's just the hardware. What you need is also the software, which is the heart of the MOC, and that is where the story comes in. So personally, when I think of a MOC, I think of what sort of story I can convey with the MOC, and the MOC is just a vehicle to entertain with the story. And that's what I did with this particular build, which is a forest and a campsite with this Boy Scout who has set up his camp over here. If you missed the video where I built this particular MOC from start to finish, do check out the link in the card above or the description below. In another previous video, I also discussed how to create a Lego scene for a Lego city. I gave examples of static and dynamic scenes and showed how important they are to bring life to a city. If you missed that video, do check out the link in the description as well. Whenever you create a Lego MOC, static scenes generally are really important to establish a scene or a setting. A static scene is basically minifigs engaged in everyday activity, or at least expected activity in the context of the display or the environment. In this case, this is not a city, but it is a riverside and it's a campsite. So the expected activity is for him to set up camp, and that's exactly what he's doing. But because he's not doing anything particularly interesting and he's just set up camp, this is a static scene. I talked about establishing a scene, and if you are concentrating on a section of a particular MOC, or in this case the whole display itself because it is so small, I think of establishing a scene. And this is often done in movies as well. They establish a scene, the character, the place, depending what the movie is about, but basically it introduces you to the main character and the environment. It is very important to establish a scene in a story because that is how your audience can connect to the particular story, and when interesting things happen, it is in the context of the established scene and character. Just think of a lot of superhero movies, especially origin stories. You are generally first introduced to a character who is the normal human being engaging in everyday life, and then something happens that turns him into a superhero or gives him superpowers. So the superpowers are always juxtaposed to the ordinary life that the character led in the establishing act of the story. The reason why you need an establishing scene is because you need to introduce conflict, and conflict is what can bring potential challenges to the established scene. So in this case, we have a nice scene where the Boy Scout has set up camp, and you can see he's done quite a bit already with his sleeping bag out. He set a fire, he's got food ready, his map is on the floor over here. But the conflict that's being introduced is this large red spider over here. And then we have another conflict, and that's the caveman across the river hiding behind the trees looking on. Now the question is, what's going to happen to the Boy Scout? So I established the scene of the Boy Scout, and I've introduced two pieces of potential conflict. And good conflict often gives an air of mystery and opens up the viewer's imagination. As a storyteller, I can guide viewers towards a path, but they can use their own creativity to continue the story. And in my previous video, I did leave the fate of this Boy Scout in the open, and I left it to subscribers to give their thoughts. And I'm happy to say some of you gave really creative stories, and here are my favorite ones. Fruits Loves Legos wrote, "I think the caveman has his eye on the spider instead. He will come and eat it. It is juicy and red. Then the Boy Scout will run away and tell people he saw Bigfoot, but no one will believe him." I think that's a great story and very plausible, because if you actually look at the caveman, he's not really looking at the Boy Scout, he is looking in the direction of the spider. Let's have a look at another one. This one is a bit more dark and morbid, and it is from Hugo Nascimento. The spider bites the Boy Scout, the caveman rips the leg of the Boy Scout to extract the poison, spider gets barbecued and eaten by both. The leg can then be used as a fishing rod to try to catch fish for the next meal. That is really creative, even though it is a bit morbid. But I think the most creative story comes from Galagade. She wrote, "He's really not a caveman, but a lost billionaire whose private jet crash landed in the jungle many moons ago. And the scout found him, and now the scout is rewarded beyond his wildest dreams and also adopted as the billionaire's son." That is really creative and really plausible. I do like that particular story. So what do you think when you think of the scene after hearing subscribers' thoughts? Do you have even more creative stories? I've added to the story. I've already introduced conflict as I mentioned before, but I thought I'd like to add in a sense of adventure. So I've actually expanded upon the set. So if you have a look at the set now and you compare it to the one I showed previously in the previous video, you might notice there's a bit of a difference. And here's my expanded story. There's actually a reason why the Boy Scout is camping alone. And that's another important story technique, and that is motivation. Why is the character doing something? In this case, why is this Boy Scout all alone in this forested area, camping alone in a potentially dangerous place? Well, there's a reason. In the previous video, I already had a map, but this isn't any map. It is a map of a lost treasure. Or at least that's what the Boy Scout believes. He believes that there's a rare pink ruby guarded by a black bat, and he wants to hunt for this treasure. Of course, everyone in the city has told him it's an urban legend and there's no such pink ruby and no bat cave where this ruby is hidden. But this Boy Scout is determined, and he took an old map and he's on the hunt. This makes for a very interesting backstory, and if I were to let you have a look at the display, and if you were to view this in person and you take your time going around the display, you see that there's actually more to the story. Because if you look over here, I've added some rocks, and notice there's something at the side of the rock, and that is a black bat. I know some of you might have been expecting Lego Batman. No, it's an actual bat. And it's not just any rocks, it's a cave. And inside the cave, at least when we look at it from the back, we see a very large pink ruby. So it seems like the treasure is actually real and the Boy Scout is really close to it. Now, I'm still not sure what to make of this caveman. I'm not sure if he's a billionaire who was looking for the pink ruby and crashed his plane, as Galagade said, or is he actually a cannibal waiting to eat up the Boy Scout? I'll let you decide on that. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed these tips on how to create a story with Lego. Remember to establish a scene, introduce conflict, add a bit of mystery and adventure, and you get a really interesting story with your mock or even standard Lego sets. If you've got any creative ideas or stories to add to this particular mock, do let me know in the comments. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button. Thanks for watching, and do check out these two videos before you go.